Ah, the 80s and the 90s. What great memories I had as a kid visiting arcades, enjoying the latest releases, and of course, shooting some pinball. Well, a special thanks to Frontier for this early access to the latest Update 9 to get my hands on what is, I think, one of the better updates we've had in quite a while. Guest interacting with all these different machines, testing their luck, playing games. It's great to see in Planet Coaster 2, and I thoroughly enjoyed testing it out. But there was one thing missing, and for me, it's pinball. I love pinball. I've built my own virtual pinball cabinet, been part of the visual pinball community for a while, and yeah, it's just something I thoroughly enjoy. And so when I saw we were getting arcades, I thought I have to create my own machine and add it to the list. So this is going to be a speed build video today, and I really hope you enjoy. So yeah, today we are building a pinball machine. And if you didn't know, pinball has just gone through a bit of a renaissance period in the last decade or so. I think it's driven by nostalgia, but also just a general appreciation for something that's not completely digital, has that organic form. And once you go down the rabbit hole of how they're designed, you start to realize that pinball might just be one of the most over-engineered but beautifully chaotic forms of entertainment that we've ever had. My brother bought a couple of pinball machines a few years ago and traded them, and we had a good time playing those. And he often says that if he'd kept them, they'd probably be worth more now. So it's a kind of a game you can buy and almost guarantee it's going to appreciate in value, which is pretty interesting. Obviously, building at scale in Planet Coaster 2 can be challenging without scaling mods. And it was just essential for me to have that iconic reflective pinball in the machine. And so I built this little prototype to test it out using layers of text. It actually came out quite convincing. I was pretty chuffed with the result. So with that done and working in all forms of light, I pressed on and built a cabinet. There's a lot that actually goes into a cabinet. There's electronics, there's mechanical devices, there's the backboard, the screens, the dot matrix display, the plunger, and of course the infamous flippers, which give you the control. And that's actually the wild bit here. For the first couple of decades of its life, pinball was basically just a luck-based game. You would pull the plunger and the ball bounced around pins, and you just watch, and there was nothing much you could do. And that changed in 1947 when Gottlieb released a game called Humpty Dumpty, and it had 6 flippers, not 2, and they faced outwards, which is quite different from what we see today. But that one design choice, giving players actual control over the ball, really saved pinball from being banned forever. And I do mean banned, because pinball was actually illegal in major US cities for decades. I think it was in the early 40s, 1942, where the New York mayor infamously smashed pinball machines with a sledgehammer for the cameras. And this was, I guess the argument was it was gambling and that it was corrupting children. And it wasn't until even 1976 when New York released the ban on pinball, because they brought in some champion player who was able to prove it was a game of skill and not chance. So pretty funny history. So with the cabinet prototype done, it was time to move on to the ball motion. And with something like this, you want to create the motion first and then build your design around it, because it's just too fiddly to try and get it matching perfectly. At least that's how I tackled it in a limited amount of time. And you'll notice here that in this update, the moving platforms look different. They actually have changed the size. They reduced the profile of the foot of each element. And yeah, I'm not really sure why they've done that. It hasn't really changed functionality at all. Perhaps it's something to do with the upcoming DLC, but I'll take a smaller version, but would have liked an invisible toggle for sure. So the way a playfield is laid out is generally an art form. Like, there's the most common modern designs use something that's called a fan layout, and you'll point 7 or 8 shots upwards from the flippers, spread out like a fan, and every shot is a clean straight line from one of the flippers, And that's the design used in classics like No Fear, Monster Bash, pretty much every Stern machine made today. It started with the Terminator 2 machine back in 91, and it's been the dominant layout pretty much ever since. The reason it works so well is that the ball flows. Like, you hit a ramp, it loops back to the flippers, you hit another ramp, it loops back. So it's, it's constant action, and there's no dead time. And then there's the pop bumpers, which you can see here, those little mushroom shaped things that are basically, they hit the ball and push down a little solenoid and it knocks the ball away really fast. And they fire the ball, in all kinds of random directions. And designers have a rule that those must be surrounded with rubber, because steel or other items really kill the action, and rubber keeps the ball quite alive. And the very best machines also have what's called a multi-level playfield. So Williams, who make some of my favorite pinballs, they introduced a game in the 80s called Black Knight, which had a second deck where up atop the ball could travel and then be hit with another flipper that was up there as well. And that kind of design is really technically difficult, but it's what separates those great machines from the legendary ones. You can see here the LED lights, or back in the old days they were incandescent bulbs that are buried into cutouts on the playfield itself, which is typically made of plywood and has a beautiful artwork painted on top. But these lights are used to indicate progress in the game, and up the top there you've got these little gates, and as you roll the ball through them you'll light up letters, and typically you can change which letter is lit up with the flippers. So you're not just controlling the ball, but you can actually interact with the lights and do things in the game that make it quite strategically compelling. And I think that's probably what a lot of people don't realize. If you've never played pinball, there's often a narrative to the game. There's a whole storyline. One of my favorite machines I've played is Circus Voltaire, and it has the ringmaster who pops up out of the playfield, and you can hit him and get bonuses, and over time learn the secrets of who the ringmaster is. So there's a story that's also displayed on the dot matrix display, and you'll find that most of the games from the 90s onwards had something like that. So you don't just score, but you progress, and you're trying to build up your bonuses, you're trying to get higher value points, and to obviously get your name on the scoreboard, which is what it was all about, adding your initials to the final piece, which is, for bragging rights and all that. Of course, getting a high score isn't easy, and there's a lot of techniques to it. You can nudge the machine, you can give it a good whack and help the ball go down the path, or get it out of a lane which might cause you to drain the ball. Those typical shots of a pinballer hunched over the machine, really getting into it, is what you'll see often at the arcades. And they're nudging and trying to get it to their advantage, and that was another aspect to really improving your game. On my visual pinball cabinet I put in a motion sensor which simulates that, and it adds quite a lot to the overall experience, as well as some knocker speakers which give the vibrations and made it feel as real as it possibly could get. So I do know my cabinet quite well, and when it came to building this machine, I could just do it from memory, and I think that really helped me out here. So the two flipper layout that we all recognize now, the inward facing pair at the bottom of the game, that came out from a Gottlieb game called Spot Bowler, and before that, designers were experimenting with all sorts of weird configurations. You had flippers in the middle, flippers at the top, 3 flippers, 4, 6 flippers, but that bottom center layout just worked, and it's been the sort of standard for over 75 years now. And I think that's because it draws your eye to where you want to play, and the ball comes to you, and then you push it up the field. And so the flippers themselves are always positioned about 7 inches, or 15 centimeters up from the bottom edge of the playfield, and roughly about 7 inches apart at their pivot points. And that's been the default on Williams machines for decades. That's been the mechanism under the playfield, which creates that thud as you click it. It's a big solenoid that assembles under the playfield. It's screwed in, and it sort of causes it to flip up quite violently, and you get a lot of control. And the ball, as it comes down, you can catch it, you can do some trick shots by nudging the ball from one flipper to the other. And one of the main things that people don't realize is you don't need to hit the ball when it comes to the flipper. If you let it come and bounce, it'll hit the flipper on one side and often bounce to the other, and you can catch it. And while I would have liked to introduce all of that motion into this system, it was just going to be too tricky. So I kept it simple and just had it flipping back up and forward. So I was getting to the point now, exciting, get to play with the lights and see what this thing looks like. And yeah, it came out better than expected. And using this water piece sort of highlighted the color inside even better. So it was on to building the cabinet next. And there's quite a lot involved in a cabinet design. You have these side rails which capture the glass, and that's held down by what they call the lockdown bar. The lockdown bar is where you rest your hands and reach around and press the buttons on the side for the flippers. And you can reach the lockdown bar through the front coin door. You put your hand through there and you can unlock it. That comes off, and then you pull the glass out of the sliders, and that gives you access to the playfield. And once you've got the glass out, you can lift the playfield up vertically and get underneath it where everything's attached from beneath. And so if you own a pinball machine, you spend a lot of time replacing bulbs or tweaking things. It's a maintenance nightmare. So I would say this is probably a big reason you wouldn't see them around as much anymore. But if you do happen to find one, give it a go. I did mention the dot matrix display, and that is a critical part of more modern games where it shows you the score and explains the story. It even has little mini games that you can interact with through the pinball. And this toy box pack actually has come in really quite useful for a few things now. And I'm using this robot head as the dot matrix display. And yeah, by adding some of the graphics and art from the stickers, it really sold it as a machine from the 90s. So I wanted to tell you about what pinball machines you should keep an eye out for if you get the chance. So the big four names that you really need to know about are Gottlieb, Bally, Williams, and Stern. Gottlieb basically founded the industry back in the 30s. Bally started not long after, and they got their name from a game called Ballyhoo, and that sold thousands of copies. And it sort of, I guess, spurred on Williams, which came along in the 40s. And Stern is actually the modern survivor. They're the ones who brought what was left of the industry in 99, and today they make about 75% of all new pinball machines in the world. Williams and Bally are responsible for what most collectors call the golden age, and certainly playing them, I agree, they are definitely a magic that hasn't been recreated quite fully. So machines like the Addams Family, Twilight Zone, Medieval Madness, Attack from Mars, Monster Bash, Circus Voltaire, those types of games are still considered the pinnacle of design. And Twilight Zone in particular had a feature called the Power Ball, which was a ceramic ball that played differently to the steel one. And it had this sort of working gumball machine that was built into the playfield. And that's just some of the level of mechanical creativity that we're talking about from those days. Today, the main players are Stern, Jersey Jack, Pinball, Chicago Gaming Company, and Spooky Pinball. Stern does make the licensed blockbusters, so Jaws, John Wick, Jurassic Park, Star Wars, those types of games. Jersey Jack does these sort of gorgeous immersive machines with huge LCD displays. They created The Wizard of Oz and Pirates of the Caribbean, Harry Potter, and Chicago Gaming remakes the 90s classics. So you got other little bespoke ones like Spooky, who are doing some weird and wonderful stuff too. So the industry's alive and well. So yeah, I was really happy with how it turned out. It looks like it fits in with the Update 9 arcade machines just nicely. If only we could get the guests to come and play it. So Frontier, please add some generic interaction blocks that we can create our own things with. And that's probably my main comment about the update. It was really great to see, a diversion from the typical queue and ride scenario that we always get. So I really appreciated the arcade update, and I think it added quite a lot to making guests feel alive in your park. I've said this quite a few times now, but we want guest interactions, all I do, to make it feel really immersive. So a really great update. It's free. Hope you go and get it and enjoy making your own arcades. I'm looking forward to seeing what some of the other creators are doing with it too. And yeah, thank you for joining me on this one. I'll put a link to the blueprint, and as always, enjoy your week. Thanks everyone. Take care.